Hi friends, welcome to our YouTube channel. If you came to our YouTube channel for first time, please subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with your SAP circle as sharing is caring. So in today's lecture, we will discuss the most important topic in SAP MM, release procedure. So in today's lecture, we will discuss release procedure for PR. So you can also do that for PR, PO. In this lecture, we will discuss release procedure for purchase requisition. So before we get started, just write down this positive quote in top of your notebook. The comeback is always greater than setback. जो हमारे लाइफ्स में कमबैक्स होते हैं वो हमेशा हमारे सेटबैक से बड़े होने चाहिए. Yeah. So what is a release procedure? So release procedure is like what's the business requirement for that and how SAP consultant, SAP MM consultant used to configure that in SPRO. So what's the business requirement for that? So just like let's suppose you are working in a purchasing department or you are working in a production department in a plant and you just want to create a PR, like you just required a material and you just want to create a PR, like if someone, like if I'm just working as a production engineer and I just required some raw material. So for that, definitely first I'm going to create a PR, purchase requisition. That's an internal document. After that, I'm going to provide that to the procurement department. They are going to create a RFQ or purchase order from that purchase requisition, right? That's the procedure to purchase a material. So in that case, if like client just want whenever PR is converted to PO or RFQ, some hierarchy must approve that first. Like as I just created a purchase requisition for raw material and I just shared that to a procurement team or a purchase organization team, like they are going to create a PO with respect to that. In that case, like if company just want, like we just want to approve that first from the supervisor, manager, and general manager or chief manager, how you are going to configure that? That means PR is not going to convert to PO or RFQ until and unless a higher authority is not going to approve that first. So that's a release procedure. We can also configure that for purchase order. So in case of a purchase order, how it's going to work? Let's suppose like a company just want or client just want like up to 5,000, up to the value of 50,000, that PO document must be approved by supervisor or procurement engineer. But after 1 lakh, like up to 50,000 to 1 lakh, a supervisor and procurement engineer is going to approve that before creating that PO. Okay. But after that, like after 1 lakh to 2 lakh, the company just want like that must be approved only by manager and plant head. So they can configure as a SAP MM consultant, we can configure that requirement in SAP. So that's a release procedure. Right now, we are just discussing a release procedure for purchase requisition, right? So, like, let's suppose manager, senior manager, and chief manager, client just want like, or that's a business requirement from client's end. Like manager, senior manager, and chief manager must release that PR before converting that to PO and RFQ. And like MM consultant has to configure that in SPRO. That's a MM consultant's job. As per the client requirement, MM consultant is going to configure that. So in that, in release procedure, there are two methods are there, like with classification and without classification. Here, that's also a global certification question. Like you can you can use the release strategy. You can configure a release strategy for purchase requisition through with classification as well as without classification. But mostly 99% organizations are using with classification because in this process we can release PR at both item level and header level. So mostly companies are going to use with classification release procedure. So before that, what we will do, we will just we will just we must have the client's requirement, what client actually want. So they just want like I we just have two plant KL01 and KL012. Plant just want like whenever someone just wants to create a purchase requisition by just taking this plant KL01 and KL02 and with purchase group 001, 002, 003 and 004, that release strategy must be triggered. That's a client requirement. Like whenever anyone is just wants to create a purchase requisition with a combination of these plants and this purchase group, that release procedure must be triggered. Okay, and only procurement head, supervisor, and plant head must release that. So that's the requirement. Let's just take the simple requirement first. Then we will take some more complicated requirement. So let's just take like for these two purchasing groups and this plant, the combination of this plant and this purchasing group, client just want like that release strategy must be triggered. So how we are going to configure that? So for that, we will just go to SAP Sandbox. So let me take you to the SAP Sandbox. So where we are going to configure that? In SPRO. So in SPRO implementation guide, we are going to configure that requirement. So these are the nodes where consultants use to configure all the requirements. So I will just go in material management node, purchasing node, and then you can see purchase requisition node here. And here you can see release procedure. Here two options are there: setup procedure without classification, procedure with classification. So we will just use procedure with classification. Here you can see edit characteristics, edit class, setup procedure with classification, check release strategies. So first we will discuss what is that, and then we will start configuring. So what we are going to do, we will do that with classification. So what's the client requirement? The client just want like for this plant with this purchasing group, that approver must be manager, senior manager, like that. So approver must be like manager, senior manager, and chief manager, right? So I just made that for 10 step procedure so that you guys can easily do that. So that's a 10-step procedure, and in 10 steps we will complete that. So I just made the algorithm for that with 10 steps, right? So like that's also an interview question. Like what's the communication structure for purchase requisition? So communication structure for purchase requisition is CEBAN. So we just use CEBAN as a communication structure for purchase requisition, right? So that's also an interview question. And we are going to create a characteristics first. What's the characteristics? Like what's the client requirement here? You should understand the requirement first. So client just want like for this plant and this purchasing group, for this plant and this purchasing group, the release strategy must be triggered. Like these manager, senior manager, and chief manager must be approved that document first. Then only that purchase requisition can be converted to PO and RFQ. So that's the client requirement. So for that, we have to create a characteristics in the system. So I have to create first a characteristic for plant. Then I will create a characteristics for purchase group, right? So how we are going to create a characteristics? So first step is create characteristics. So that's a path. We can go through the path and we can also do that with the help of T code. So first we will go through the path. So that's the path. And here we will just go to purchase requisition and procedure with classification. And here we will go to edit characteristics. And here we will create a characteristics. So first we will just create a characteristics like this. For plant, I'm creating characteristics. So I'm just taking this, click on create icon. And one more thing, if it's a ECC or S4 HANA, the procedure is exactly same. You can do that in ECC as well as in S4 HANA. So the procedure is exactly same, right? So here I will just give the description here. So description, I'm just giving the same plant underscore two and just go to additional data tab. Here I will give the table name. So what's the table name? Table name is a communication structure. So that's a CEBAN for purchase requisition. And what's a field name? What's that field name or technical name? So we can check the field name in SE11 table. So in SE11, we can check a field name or technical name. So here table name is CEBAN. Just go to display. And here you can see these are the field name or technical name or component name. I just want for plant. So for plant, that's a field name. Okay. In FPRO, IMG, I just closed that session. So I have to open that again. Just go to material management node, purchasing node, go to purchase requisition, go to release strategy, procedure with classification. Here, edit characteristics. And here, just create icon, click on create icon. Description, I'm giving that same. And additional data is table name is CEBN and field name is WERKS. So from SE11, we can check that also. So for plant, that's a WERKS. So now the system will understand, yeah, okay, that the characteristics I'm creating, that belongs to plant. So from field name, the system will understand, okay. So enter, yes, and save. So I just created a characteristics for plant. Same, I will create a characteristics for purchasing group. So I will just take this. So let me create for purchasing group. So I will just give this characteristics and create already exists. So I will take 3. No issues. Enter. Here I will just give that same description. And here we will select single value checkbox here. Hit enter. Go to additional data tab. And here's table name will be same CEBAN. But field name we have to check in SE11 table. So field name for purchasing group is this one. So this is a field name. Copy and paste. Enter. Yes. Okay. Here we are just selecting single value. In next scenario, in next business scenario, I will select multiple values. So hit enter and save. So I just created the characteristics for plant and characteristics for purchasing group, right? I just created characteristics for plant and characteristics for purchasing group. So that's 2 and this 3. Now next step is create class. I have mentioned everything in notes. Okay. So create class. So I can go through the T code and I can also go through the path. So I will do that through path. So I will just go to edit class node, execute, and the class I will just take this 3. So let me create class. What I'm doing here, I'm creating class and I'm going to assign my characteristics with my class. So this is the class and class type 032 for release strategy. That's 032 release strategy, right? Just click on create icon, description. So this one is a description. Enter, go to characteristics tab, and here I will just give my characteristics here. So what's my characteristics? So these two are my characteristics. So I will just copy and paste there. Enter and save. I also created the class. I created characteristics, I created class. Now next step will be to create a code. Before that, I will create a release group. So let me create a release group and I will again go through the path. So I have created I characteristics. I have created class and I have assigned characteristics with my class. Now next step is I will just create a release group. I will create release codes. Codes is just like manager. There will be one code for manager, for senior manager. There will be another code for chief manager. There will be another code. Release indicators. So release indicators is just like this. So you just check that. You need not to create that. That available in the standard system. So you need not to create that. Okay, so what I'm going to do, first I'm going to delete whatever is already available in the system, because in the system I can create one. So first I will do, what I will do, I will delete that. So select and delete. Yes, and save. Yes. So I just deleted the strategy. So that's the rule, thumb rule in SAP. Like whenever you are going to create, you are going to create from top to bottom. And whenever you are going to delete, you are going to delete from bottom to top. Okay. So first I'm going to delete release strategy, then I'm going to delete release indicator. So yeah, never ever delete release indicators. So that's a standard one. Never delete that. Just check that. Okay. Release codes I'm going to delete. So these are the release codes. I will select all from here and I will delete. Yes, and save. Yes. Now I will delete release group. So that's the release group. I will delete from here. Yes, and save. Now I'm going to create that one by one. So first step is I'm going to create release groups. So just go to new entry, release group here. So that's a release group. Yeah. So release group, I'm going to take MM. You can take anything. And class. What I'm doing here, I'm creating release group and I'm assigning my release group with class. So I'm assigning my class with release group. That's my class. Enter and save. Yes. That's also done. Now I'm going to create release codes. So just go to new entries, release group. I just created MM. Code I will take like manager, MG, description like manager, release group again code senior manager, and here senior manager description, release group and release code chief manager. So what I am doing, that's a client is saying to me, like that's a client requirement. Okay. That's a client's business requirement. He just want to approve from manager, senior manager, and chief manager. Whenever someone just create a PR and they just want to create a PO with respect of that purchase requisition, or if someone wants to create a RFQ with respect of that PR, that's that's going to happen only once these manager, senior manager, and chief manager will approve that first. Okay, or you can say they will release that first. So enter and save. Yes, that's also done. Release indicators you need not to change. Just see is that available or not. Back release strategy. So in release strategy, okay. So really these two steps we will discuss in next session. That release strategy, and then we will try to check that, we will try to test that like our release procedure is working or not. So that we will discuss in next session. So just summarize what we have discussed. So we just discussed what's the release strategy, what's the release procedure, what's the release procedure, and what's the business requirement for that. So business requirement is like if client just want like whenever someone just create a PR, and if they are going to create that to PO or RFQ, that must be approved first from manager, senior manager, and chief manager. So that's a business requirement. An consultant used to perform that requirement. The release procedure for PR can be done with classification and without classification. And in case of a with classification, we can release that at header level as well as item level. And mostly companies are using with classification. And then we just see what's the communication structure for PR. That's a CEBAN. And I just made that algorithm for 10 step for that release procedure. So we just created a characteristics. So we just created a characteristics for plant and purchasing group because that's the client's requirement. Client is saying he just want for this plant and this purchase requisition combination, he just want to trigger the release procedure. So we just created a characteristics for class and characteristic. We just created a characteristics for class and plant. Oh, sorry. We just created a characteristics for plant and purchasing group. Then we just created a class and we have assigned the characteristics with. We just assign the characteristics to the class whatever we have created. Then we have created a release group and we have assigned that to the release class. Okay. And we created a release codes. So codes like manager, senior manager, chief manager, like that we can create any number of codes. Okay. Like that we can create any number of codes. So we just created manager, senior manager, and chief manager here. Okay. In next session, what we will do, we will create a release indicator. We will just create a release strategy in the next session, and we will assign, and then we will test that in. We will first create a PR, and then we will release that, and we will see that is that triggered or not. So we will see in the next session. Okay. So thank you. If you like this session, please like this video and share in your SAP circle, as sharing is a caring. So thank you guys. Thanks a lot. May God bless you all.